Hi, my name is Arthur, and today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is why I love being transgender. So I wrote out my 7 top reasons that I love being trans, but before I get into that, if you've ever seen one of my videos before, you know that there's going to be some sort of emotional, rambly preamble. So of course there is. So I have to say, for me, being transgender does not mean that I'm a man with the wrong body, it does not mean that I have gender dysphoria, it does not mean that I hate myself. And those things, sure, at times have been true. I felt like I had the wrong body. I did experience gender dysphoria, and there were times where I really struggled with who I was. But having had those experiences, to me, is not core to my identity as a trans person. Why am I transgender? Well, I can't tell you why you might identify as transgender, why your friend might identify as transgender, why Elliot Page might identify as transgender, but I can tell you that for me myself, the reason that I'm trans is because I was born a girl and I now live as a man. That's it. It's really not more deep than that. And so there have been times where transition has been really hard, and there have been times where I've struggled a lot, but inherently the experience of being someone who was a girl and is now a man doesn't mean you're sad for life. It just is what it is. So I don't spend much time these days thinking about would I have been happier if I had been born a cis man, because I wasn't. I'm just me. I am very happy as me, and so there are lots of things I love specific to my life experience. So this isn't to prove that being a trans man is the best kind of gender one can be, but it's about the reasons why I personally love who I am, and I'm happy with the path that I'm on. So something I was thinking about on that note is, and of course this will eventually loop back, is that my partner and I are moving in together, and we spent a long time searching for apartments, and there were lots of apartments we loved, and there were apartments that seemed like the best possible apartment. But you know what the best possible apartment is? It's the one that we actually signed the lease for, you know? And I can tell you so many things I love about that apartment. It has great common room space for hosting parties, which we love to do. It's nearby my office, it's nearby his office, it's nearby our friends, there's good light, there's a nice kitchen, so many lovely things about that apartment. And I can't prove to you that it's better than the apartments we would have been in, and in fact there were some apartments that we looked at that, you know, I think probably were better. But I can love everything about that apartment because at the end of the day, it's the best apartment because it's the one that we actually will live in, you know? And I think that skill of being able to really, really treasure the things that are actually true to you and true about your life path is like one of the keys to happiness. I'm not a religious person, but I think there's something really special about the Serenity Prayer. So, you know, being able to accept what you can't change, having the courage to change what you can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think about that a lot with my transness, right? I changed a lot about myself. I took hormones, I got surgery, I changed my gender, I'm living as a man, I did all those things. And I had the courage to do that. It was very scary. But there are some things I can't change. I will always be transgender. That's never, you can't transition away from being transgender. You transition into being transgender. I will always, for the rest of my life, be a trans person. And I have to accept that. And I love that about myself. And I think that being able to accept those things about yourself is really cool. And if you're a trans person right now who's experiencing a ton of gender dysphoria and who's in a lot of pain, it is absolutely harder to feel proud and happy of identities that are bringing you pain. But that might not always be the case for you. So if that's where you're at right now, you can watch this video as sort of, I don't know, aspirations towards what life might be for you. And, you know, if you're not there at this current moment, cut yourself some slack. It's totally okay. You know, not every trans person needs to love everything about being trans. But I hope for every trans person that they can find some things that they take pride in. Okay, so let's get to my actual list. What is my favorite part of being transgender? Well, it changes every time I reflect on this, but in the current moment, my favorite part of being transgender is that it has allowed me to feel proud of the fact that I'm a man in a really special way. So, most men were born boys and then just kind of became men. They didn't have to put any effort into it. I had to put a lot of effort. I was born a girl, and then I had to be really intentional about the fact that I wanted to be a man. It required a lot of doctor's appointments, it required a lot of therapy, it required a lot of introspection and hard conversations and thinking about who I was. And it wasn't easy. And I think that's so cool that I knew what I wanted and I became it. I'm the kind of person where the things that I feel the most special about, that I feel the most proud about, are the things I had to work for. One of the things I'm the most proud of in my life, which is gonna sound silly, is a test I did really well on. And you might be like, that's dumb, a test? That's what you're most proud of? Well, when I was an undergrad, I knew I wanted to do a PhD in economics. And so I asked if I could take a PhD level economics class. And they were sure. I was the only undergrad in that class. And I was at the time also a woman, and so it was I was very visible. At the end of quarter one, we had to take an exam. I did totally mediocre in it, like near the bottom of the class. That's fine, I'm an undergrad, whatever. Quarter two comes around, I'm like, I'm gonna do better. Same thing, near the bottom of the class. And at that point, I emailed the professor, and I'm like, hey, I love this class. I love economics, I'm so excited to do this. I'm just worried, am I not doing well enough? Like, should I not keep going? And he was like, well, if you love it, keep going, it's gonna be okay. Quarter three, same deal, near the bottom of the class. Quarter four, same deal, near the bottom of the class. And every time one of those tests came up, I was like, I'm studying, I really want to do better this time, I really want to get it. And at the end of the day, it didn't happen for me. So I knew at that point, I was like, I love this so much, even if I'm not doing amazingly at it, screw it, I love it. But there was this big exam that these first-year PhD students would take to basically become second-year PhD students. So you would take an exam that proved the whole year's worth of knowledge. So it was a cumulative exam, and if you passed it, which is not a guarantee, so they would fail people, you became a second-year student. I was like, well, I want one more shot to prove my knowledge in this. So I asked, and I was like, hey, can I take that exam? And they were like, we have never had an undergrad ever asked to take that exam, because my grade was already in. I got a mediocre grade in the class because I did mediocre in the class, and they were like, well, it's not gonna impact your grade. Sure, why not? Just print out another copy, you can take it, fine. And so that exam was like a month after classes ended, and I spent that month, like all the other grad students did, studying just the whole time. And I really learned that stuff, and it had just taken me a long time, but I got there. And then I took it, and I got, I think it was either the second or third highest score in the class, which was like really excellent. And my professors sent me these really sweet emails about where they were just like totally floored by how well I'd done, especially in contrast to how well I'd done previously. And it's like, it's something I still just feel so proud of, because it had not come to me easily. And I felt like I'd failed 4 times in a row, and that I still had the feeling of, you know what, I'm gonna go for a 5th time, because I love this and I know it's what I meant to do. And I just feel really proud of that as a quality of myself, and I think that is really how I feel about the fact that I'm a man. And I just feel so special to have been given the opportunity to have worked towards who I am as a man. And I experience that feeling of pride all the time in all these day-to-day situations that you wouldn't expect, right? We talk about gender dysphoria, gender euphoria, but this feeling of like actual pride, and it's silly. I had to get a state ID recently. Not my first time having an ID with the M marker on it, not my first time having an ID with Arthur as my name on it. But when I saw it in the mail, I was like, I did that. That's so cool. I did that, And I'll be in all male spaces, and I'll feel proud to be there, and I'll be hanging out with my friends and interacting with them as a man, and I'll feel proud that that's who I am. I feel proud when I get dressed in men's formal wear. I feel proud when I look at my body, and I feel proud when I'm at the gym. I feel proud of everything I am becoming. And I think it's so cool that I get to have that relationship. Many men I know have bodies that are still aging. I was talking about this with my boyfriend, where he has more chest hair nowadays than when we first met. And he's like, cool, whatever, he feels fine about it. Every little bit of facial hair that comes in, every little bit of body hair, I feel so proud of it, because I did that. That was me. It's so cool. I feel so lucky. So that's my favorite thing about being transgender, is the pride I feel about it. My second favorite thing is really personal to me, and I know that this won't resonate with many people, but that's okay. I'm just trying to give you a jumping off point. My second favorite thing is that I personally identify with having experienced some elements of female socialization, and I feel like those worked fantastically for me, and I'm so grateful that I have those lingering lessons from my girlhood sticking around with me as a man. So what I mean, yeah, I think one of the reasons that people don't resonate with these male and female socialization discussions is that there's this thing that's like, oh, being raised a girl doesn't mean you were forced to wear girly girl clothes, that you always put on pink, that you were one of the girls, that you were a cheerleader, that you had this rigid definition of girlhood. Many people who were born that way didn't experience that. I didn't experience that. But I think female socialization can be construed of in this really broad way, which affects all sorts of different aspects, right? So I experienced a type of female socialization where you are the only girl in STEM classes. That is a trope. And I was joking about this with one of my friends who's also a trans guy, where he called it the girl boss treatment. That was like the kind of female socialization that was the most prevalent for me, which is like, I was taught, hey, you are exceptional, you have to push on this, you're gonna be the only one, what does it mean to like strive for something? And I was given this sort of like, the only girl in accelerated math treatment. And I think that was really cool for me. But at the same time, I was also told, hey, you really need to care about being sociable, about people liking you, about being empathetic, about listening. And I also associate those things as really being core to female socialization in my experience of it. And that was not natural for me. I was not very good at those things at all. I was a total loner. I felt, and when I was, in elementary, middle school, I was happy to be a loner. In high school, it bummed me out. I became really extroverted all of a sudden, but I like didn't have those skills. And I think female socialization at first kind of nudged me in this like, hey, you should feel bad about that. But it ultimately nudged me to be like, hey, you can change that. And I think that I did learn to become a good listener. I think I learned to care for friends. I think I learned to connect with people. And a lot of that was intentional, but I think the kind of nudge towards it was definitely something that was like, because I was seen as a girl at that time in my life. I think that if I hadn't been born that way, if I had been a very awkward, nerdy boy good at math, I think I would have just been like let be. And I think I've been around those guys, and I think some of them are really quite lonely, like later on in life, and so I feel very grateful that I was nudged away from that in some sense. I was also a little bit of an edgelord growing up. Like I would get in these really dumb discussions with people where I would just like, you know what edgelords are, just take like insane stances on things and argue meaninglessly, over in the dining hall with friends or the cafeteria with friends. And, that got beaten out of me, and I am really happy about that. And I think that is like a very male-coded trait, right? Being like a little bit of an edgelord. And I don't think it's a particularly flattering trait. And so I feel as if like, given who I am now, like I'm pretty assertive, pretty argumentative, pretty confident, pretty loud. I think that the original lessons of female socialization have really like balanced me out in a really positive way. And of course, I'm read as a man all the time nowadays, so I'm experiencing male socialization too as an adult man, and so I have all this crisscross of experiences, and it's not like it's not like I'm some perfect man that will never do bad things, because I live in society, and I get treated as a man, and, that affects me too. But I think that I will always feel very happy that I had those original lessons from growing up as a girl. Number 3, having once had a body that made me so uncomfortable means that I always feel grateful of my body and happy to look at my body because I know what it could be. And that's something that I think is just because I'm trans, and I feel really happy about that. So like, I'll have a really hard day at work, and, as you do it, I'll get back and I'm so tired, and it's like everything sucks. And I'll be getting ready for bed, I take off my shirt, I look in the mirror, and I'm like, I see my chest, I see my belly hair, and I'm like, damn, like, some things are okay. Like, it's gonna be okay. And I will look at myself in the mirror, and I'll just, like, smile sometimes. Like, I don't know many people that are like that, Like, and I mean, and not, like, smiling to, like, make myself happy, or, like, just smiling because I'm like, yeah, like, this is nice, And I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't call it gender euphoria. I would just call it just a comfort, like a real comfort in my body that comes from knowing what it has been in the past. Yeah, and I don't know, it's like just the silly things, like as I said, like parts of aging that are happening now. It's like I wouldn't even call it like changes on testosterone at some point. It's like, everyone's body changes on testosterone as you grow from young to old, and I feel so excited to grow old, and I feel excited about so many parts of my body because I know what it had been, and so I feel like transition allows me to be grateful for my body. Number 4. I have some amazing trans male friends, and I think that we have this bond that is really because we're all trans men, and we're able to bond over that really unique experience. Yeah, and so it's one of those things, right, when you're happy with your life, I don't spend too long thinking about what life would be like if I weren't a trans man, because being a trans man is the reason that I'm able to have so many really special connections. And yeah, if I was any other gender, would I also have connections that matter a lot to me? I'm sure I would. But I have these people in my life, and I feel so happy for them. I think there's something so cool, like, being trans is such a totally transformative experience, and, being a trans man, like, any man I see who's also trans, like, we're just gonna have a kinship, sort of. I mean, not literally always. I have met some annoying trans men too. But the odds are certainly higher with trans men that I'm gonna vibe with them. And I don't know, this is sort of trans brotherhood, and I think that's really cool and very special. And I definitely have a few in mind right now who do not watch my videos because they have better things to do. But it makes me sappy when I think about it. I'm like really happy for them. Okay, number 5, another one that I think is probably a little bit controversial, but again, these are my 7 favorite things about being trans. These aren't necessarily your 7 favorite things about being trans. I actually love having a unique body and experience when it comes to dating and hookups. Yeah, so this is something that I've talked about in other videos. I think I don't know how to talk about things too gratuitously for a medley of reasons. Also because I know that some people don't feel this way about this, but I do. When I first transitioned, I really resented how being trans made dating and hookups complicated. And it does, I won't deny that. Like, it certainly adds a complexity to it. And I would have, you know, all these friends and boyfriends who were cis gay men, and it felt like they could follow this sort of recipe for hookups. Like, it was so easy for them. This is just, you know, they do X, they do Y, they do Z, they have a generic, casual hookup. And I was like so bitter about the fact that that fell off the table for me. And then, well, a few things happened. One was that I realized it was basically on the table for me, and I had many experiences that were very vanilla, and very, like, you know, cut and dry. And I was like, well, that was kind of overrated. That was just fine. That wasn't as glamorous as it seemed when it was inaccessible to me. And then I also realized that when I started viewing my trans body as something super special and super awesome, I allowed people to connect with me, also viewing my body as special and awesome and not something scary. And then when that was on the table, it felt like all of a sudden there was this special extra tier of connection that I could achieve where things were amazing. I think it's very cool that, like, the people that I date and hook up with are almost exclusively cis gay men who have had many, many, many partners before me, and almost exclusively, or a strong majority, have never been with a trans man. And I think it's very cool that I am, like, unforgettable in that sense, and I have had it expressed to me many times in many different ways how unforgettable I am in that sense. And yeah, I'm not gonna, like, I mean, I already talk about these things more gratuitously than most people would on the internet, I know, and I feel, yeah, pretty unashamed about all this. And I also know that, like, it was the top fear when I was going to transition was my relationship to my body and how was that gonna relate to, you know, love and sex and connection and all that. And so I do think there's something powerful about being like, not only is it not a problem, but I actually feel really, really positively about it. Yeah, and it's something I talk about with my cis gay friends all the time, which is that, like, you know, many of them will have hookups where, like, they are totally forgettable, and there's something, again, something fun about that for sure. I am never forgettable. Like, I am never forgettable. And I currently think that's awesome, and I love that, and I think that's really cool and fun. Yeah, and that's that. Number 6. Transition felt like this huge bet on myself where I had to listen to what I wanted and I had to trust myself that it was going to work out. And I think when it did work out, I feel now so much more able to listen to myself and trust myself, just knowing that I know best what is meant for me. And so I think that, yeah, transition really helped me get in touch with myself. There are so many scary things in my life, you know, and it's like, you all have your things that you worry about, and it feels like the end of the world, and you describe it to any other person, and they're like, that doesn't matter, but you've built it up, and, you know, I have so many things I'm working on, and so many things that make me anxious, and having done this one thing where, you know, I thought, like, hey, what do I need? I thought I needed to transition, I put all the steps in place, and I did it. It makes me feel like I can do anything. And so when I have these moments of anxiety about other areas of my life, I think I always come back to this feeling of like, well, I did transitions. Like, I can do other stuff. You know, I can get a job. I can move houses. I can, you know, I can do things. You know, like, it's gonna be okay. In the video that I filmed back in the day about how do you know if you're transgender, one of the things that I really hit over the head is that to know you're transgender requires knowing, you know, planning and knowing what you want and knowing how to make good decisions. And so I think that once I felt comfortable in that skill regarding my transness, it's just, you can apply that anywhere. It's just a great life skill. I just had spent so long being like, is that what I want? Is that what I want? But I've gotten really good at, like, listening to my feelings, listening to my body, listening to myself, and knowing what I want, you know. And I don't know, it's like I'm entering my 5th year of grad school, crazy. And I'm pretty good about taking breaks and about scheduling my days and, you know, about listening to myself and my needs. And I think that that's totally a skill that came out of transition for me. All right, number 7. It's kind of weird to put this one last, but also it's an organic end, which is that I love being transgender because I love myself, and I am transgender. You know, I don't spend like a lot of time these days trying to nitpick myself and my identity and my experiences into like good and bad and neutral. I am me, like I am Arthur, and I am the sum of all my parts, and I am more than that. And I think I am pretty awesome, so I think that all the things that make me me are awesome too. And I feel great for them. Like, all of the hard parts and the difficult parts of my life are what was necessary for me to get where I am now, which is like, I just think I live the most magical and amazing life. I love all my friends, and I love how I get to connect with them, and I love that they love me for me. I love my partner, I love my work and my research, and I think I do really cool and important things. I think I'm gonna have a big impact on the world. I like filming these videos, and I like this as another way that I can connect with people, and I love hearing that my videos have meant things to people. That's very special too. You know, I like, work is very hard, and my research is hard, and it's so rewarding, and I'm so grateful to be an economist, but when you're working on these papers, and you're like, oh my god, is the data gonna work out? Is the model gonna work out? Am I smart enough for this? It's really cool to come back and be able to film a video and know that I connected with someone and I did this, you know, like, I can't control everything about life, but it's cool to be able to have this as a way I can have impact, you know, and I wake up each day, and I feel very happy, and I feel very grateful, and this magical life with this magical me is only possible because I am myself, and because I am transgender, you know? So how could I hate being transgender when I love myself, and when I am transgender? So, yeah, I don't know, it makes me feel very emotional to think about, and I really am grateful to have this platform to talk about all my sappy thoughts about my transness and about my journey. And I know I haven't filmed a video in a month or two, and that's in part because I've been doing all those other big, intense things. I just finished my 4th year of my PhD, so there's a lot of like wrapping up teaching and giving presentations and a lot of late nights and stress. And to be honest, also a lot of late nights with friends. And I love YouTube, but of course, YouTube is what I do when I don't have plans with a friend to hang out, so I love you guys, but you guys come, you know, 3rd or 4th in my life or whatever. Yeah, and it's about to be the summer, so that's gonna be very fun. As I said, I'm moving in with my partner, so that's gonna be great. A lot of really exciting things on the docket, and I am planning on filming a lot more videos, especially once I have a better space for it. I'm in my living room right now, but because none of my apartment mates are home, but normally I am filming from that tiny, tiny little horrible bedroom with all the sea creatures that I know are iconic, but I kind of hate. And it's gonna be really nice to have a brand new big apartment with my partner, and I can film at any point in time because I can just tell him to put in noise-canceling headphones and not judge me for all of the repeated takes I do because I get neurotic about how I said, hi, this is Arthur. Anyways, so you can look forward to a lot of videos, and as always, if you have any ideas for videos, feel free to leave them in the comments. I love reading the comment section. I read every single comment. I just don't respond to them all because that would be really hard for me to do, but I do read them all. Alright, I hope you guys are excited for the summer, and I hope you're having a great time too. Alright.